I see trees of green.
Every day, across the world, people are trying to make a difference. Trying to make a difference by helping others around them, trying to fight inequalities, but also making a difference by searching, analyzing, publishing to get a better understanding of the humankind and the world that surrounds us. When we think about famous people who changed the world, we usually think about scientists like Einstein, politicians like Kennedy, civil rights activists like Martin Luther King, but we sometimes forget about women. And there are many influential women who have left their mark on the world, at times changing the course of history, and at other times influencing small but significant spheres of life. I've decided to talk about three women who helped to shape the world in which we live. They are from different countries, different centuries, but they all, in their own way, made a change in their life and in everybody else's. The first woman is Joan of Arc. Most of the people know her name. Maybe they also know that she was burned at the stake for claiming divine guidance, but we usually don't know her entire story. So, she was born in Champagne in France, probably in January in 1412. Her dad, Jacques d'Arc, was a farmer, poor but not needy. Joan seems to have been the youngest of a family of 5. She experienced her first vision at the age of 12, when she was out alone in a field, and saw figures she identified as Saint Michel and Saint Catherine. At the time of John's childhood, France was seriously divided with a lack of national unity. In 1415, King Henry V of England had invaded France and defeated the French army. This famous victory over the French nobility left the country weak and divided. Under Charles de Ponthieu, the French were without direction and without a real leader. In the vision she had, Joan of Arc said she felt the voice of God commanding her to renew the French nation. So at the age of 17, she came to the court and Charles de Ponthieu gave her control over an army and allowed her to lead them into battle. Within a year, Joan of Arc had led the French army to victories and many towns were liberated from English control. She also won the hearts of the French soldiers, who looked at her as an almost mythical leader. However, a year later, Joan was captured and sold to the English. The English and members of the French clergy decided to put her on trial for witchcraft. The leading clergy member was a supporter of the British and hated Joan of Arc for a miraculous revival of French national pride. The prosecution tried very hard to get her to blaspheme. She was threatened with torture. Joan was found guilty and condemned to death by burning at the stake. It is said that over 1,000 people came to see her execution by burning. Her ashes were scattered in the sun. One legend tells how her heart remained unaffected by the fire. 20 years later, the English declared her to be officially innocent and she became a martyr. She was canonized a saint in 1920. When I was younger, every time I would think that someone had said my name, my friends, my brothers, or my sister would tease me and tell me I had a vision like Joan of Arc. So I was surprised when I found her name in the list of the 100 people who changed the world, because I always knew her for her visions but not really for what she had achieved, so I wanted to know more, and I found her story interesting. In particular, she embodied religious devotion with great bravery and humility, but she also helped to change the course of French history, and I think this is remarkable since she was a woman, and when we think about famous soldiers or great leaders of an army, we always think about a man and not really about a woman. To the present day, Joan of Arc has remained a significant figure in Western civilization. Throughout centuries, many famous writers and composers have created works about her. The second woman I want to talk to you about is Mary Wollstonecraft, a British writer, philosopher, an advocate of women's rights. She was born on April 27, 1759, in London. She was the second of 7 children. Although her family had a comfortable income when she was a child, they became financially unstable and they were frequently forced to move. So Mary didn't get a formal education. At the age of 19, she left home to work as a lady's companion. Her work was interrupted by a series of family disasters. But to help her sisters and her friends, she founded a small school in the community of Nathan Green. She wrote her first book in 1787, Thoughts on the Education of Daughters. Then occurred the most momentous event in her life. Her London publisher, Joseph Johnson, took her as an editorial assistant, writer, and later reviewer for his new magazine, declaring herself the first of a new genus. With the influence of Johnson, Mary's ideas developed rapidly. As she grew intellectually, she saw that her problem was not her family history, but a response to a social situation in which some educated men systematically denied education and autonomy to women. During this time, Mary wrote her 2 polemical works, A Vindication of the Rights of Man, published anonymously in 1790, and A Vindication of the Rights of Women in 1792. After her publication, Mary visited Paris. There, she fell madly in love with an American, Gilbert Imlay, but when Britain and France declared war on each other, the couple broke up, and Mary returned to England. Then she attempted to commit suicide in despair of the failed relationship. After slowly recovering from the depth of depression, Mary restarted her literary career and became romantically involved with William Godwin. She became pregnant, but she tragically died giving birth to her daughter, Mary Godwin, who survived and went on to become the author of Frankenstein. After her death, William Godwin published her memoirs, which proved quite shocking to society. People were not comfortable with the unorthodox and free-living attitudes of Mary Wollstonecraft. However, by the 20th century, her writings were seen as key developments in the concept of women's rights. I find her story really interesting. Indeed, she didn't get a real education, and her life went from disasters to disaster, but she still found the force to lead her own battle and show to people her point of view. The thing even more interesting, I think, is that she fought her entire life to get equal rights with men, but at the same time she attempted to kill herself after the end of her relationship with a man. So that shows the paradox of her personality. She wanted to be autonomous, and at the same time she needed this man to survive. But I guess that's what encouraged her to liberate and educate women. In many ways, I think she was years, if not centuries, ahead of her time. The last woman I would like to introduce is Aung San Suu Kyi. She was born on June 19, 1945 in Rangoon in Burma. Her father, Yon San, founded the modern Burmese army and negotiated Burma's independence from the British Empire in 1947. He was assassinated by his rivals in the same year. So Aung San Suu Kyi was raised by her mom and grew up with 2 brothers. She went to a Methodist English high school for much of her childhood. She was later graduated from Lady Ram College in New Delhi with a degree in politics. Suu Kyi continued her education at St. Hugh's College in Oxford, obtaining a degree in philosophy, politics, and economics in 1969. After graduating, she lived in New York City with a family friend, and she worked at the United Nations for 3 years. She returned in Burma in 1988, and in August of the same year, she addressed 500,000 people at a mass rally, calling for a democratic governance. Influenced by both Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolence and by Buddhist concepts, she entered politics to work for democratization. She helped found the National League for Democracy, but was put under house arrest in 1989, and this for almost 15 of the past 20 years. According to the results of the 1990 general election, Suki earned the right to be prime minister as leader of the winning National League for Democracy party, but her detention by the military prevented her from assuming that role. After several attempts of the United Nations to set her free, she was released in 2012, and since then she has traveled around the world speaking up for democracy in Burma. She won many awards. She received the Rafto Prize for Freedom of Thought in 1990, the Nobel Prize in 1991. On September 2012, she was presented with the Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest civilian honor in the US. Even with all these awards, she always stayed humble and never stopped fighting to achieve her goal. And nowadays she is still militing even though she is getting old. And what I find quite extraordinary is that she has been put under house arrest for many years. Many times people attacked her, so she put her own life in danger to try to make a change in others' life. So these three women, in their own way, have tried to make a change in their life and everybody else's. They have helped to shape the world in which we live now. So we can also, in our own way, carry on with what they achieved, even with small changes, by giving a little bit of our time, of our personality, just with a smile and our arms wide open. We can try to make this world a better place to live in.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful